I just may not. I should get your comment.
You please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening and welcome to the November 21st Board of Public Affairs meeting. First on the agenda will be approve the minutes of the November 7th meeting. We're presented with that. See any additions, corrections? Now I'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes as written.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the minutes from the November 7th, 2023 meeting as written.
I'll second.
Annette?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Dick?
Yes.
And Karen?
Yes.
Next on the agenda will be a hearing of public concerns. Seeing none, we'll move on. Next on the agenda will be the Clerk-Treasurer's report. John?
The board has received bank statements, bank reconciliation, monthly printouts for the month ending October 31st. And I would answer any questions or that you might have at this time or any time in the future.
Questions? Discussion?
I'll make a motion. We accept the Clerk-Treasurer's report.
I'll second, John.
Karen?
Yes.
Dick?
Yes.
Annette?
Yes.
And Tom?
Yes.
Next on the agenda will be a resolution. Could you please number and read, John?
Resolution number 22, 2023, authorizing the execution of the 2023 OMEG Power Pool Participant Schedule with American Municipal Power Incorporated.
So the purpose of pooling agreements is to take advantages of economies of scale for daily forecasting and short-term power purchasing. So this agreement is for the members, and it establishes the rules for billing of pool energy resources and PJM charges. The original OMEG pool agreement was wrote in 2008, and it needs to be updated to address market changes and charges that were not contemplated in the original agreement. Pool agreements provide the rules and methodologies for allocations for the participants, for the charges and credits incurred by AMP, for energy supply, transmission, and generation delivery services. So there's no change in pricing with this updated pool agreement. It essentially brings the contract up to date to formalize the way members are operating and invoice for power supply and delivery costs. So I would respectfully request that the OMEG pool agreement be approved.
Any questions, discussion, concerns?
In reading this over, I just found the one typo, Derek, that I pointed out to you. So
Okay.
on that page 11.
Okay. The resolution does allow for minor changes to the agreement before I sign it.
I'll entertain a motion to adopt resolution 22.
I will make a motion that we accept resolution number 22 for the OMEG Power Pool Participant Schedule.
Second.
Annette?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Dick?
Yes.
And Tom?
Yep.
Okay, next on the agenda will be another resolution. Could you please number and read, John?
Resolution number 23, 2023, authorizing the transfer and appropriation of funds to the 525 Water Capital Reserve Fund.
So this additional transfer was approved in the 2023 water budget. With the anticipated bids being received for the South Wind Street water line project, we feel it'd be the appropriate time to complete the transfer and have it appropriated into that line item. The advertisements are out on November 18th and November 25th for the project, with the bid opening of December 21st. So I would respectfully request that the board authorize the transfer and that city council approve.
Any questions, discussion?
We'll have drafted the appropriate language for council to do these transactions.
Thank you, John.
I'll move to approve resolution number 23, authorizing the transfer and appropriation of funds to the 525 Water Capital Reserve Fund.
Second.
Tom?
Yes.
Karen?
Yeah.
Dick?
Yes.
And Annette?
Yes.
Next on the agenda will be a request to hire a clerk office employee. John?
Yeah, so let's see, we did a second round of advertising for this position and got some additional applicants. Interviewed, I think, 4 more and had a couple of really qualified folks we wanted to pursue. This Marissa Martinez was our first choice. She comes to us currently from Premier Bank, where she has served as a loan officer and a teller and some good banking experience. She's also done accounts receivable for Powertrain. And so, yeah, just kind of the exact kind of experience we're looking for. She has, appears to be very outgoing, friendly, is going to do well from a customer service perspective. And I would respectfully request that you authorize her hire.
Any questions? Sounds like you got a good candidate there. Very experienced.
We think so.
I will make a motion that we hire Marissa Martinez as the Clerk-Treasurer's Account Clerk 1.
Second?
Karen?
Yes.
Dick?
Yes.
Annette?
Yes.
And Tom?
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, now comes the fun part. Presentation of the 2024 budget.
Well, good evening. So the board has been supplied with a draft copy of the 2024 budget for your review. We put together a few slides to go through. We'll just do an overview and we'll highlight and touch on some of the important things in the budget. We're not going to go through every line and every number, but we'll touch on the big stuff. I'm going to spend a few minutes, talk about the revenues and expenses and the overall fund balances, and then our department heads will talk about the capital projects. Go ahead and start with power supply. Power supply costs are BMU's single greatest annual expense. It represents about 76% of the O&M expenses in the electric department. We do purchase approximately 23.2% of our energy from renewable sources. We are working on a couple of potential power purchase agreements for some additional solar and hydro to get that back to the 25% benchmark. The 2024 AMP power supply forecast was about $8.2 million for our power supply costs, or $44 a megawatt hour. And then just to highlight the transmission and capacity savings we'll see this year is about $6.3 million, which is up about 1.8 from last year. A large part of that was the generation efforts for the Winter Storm Elliott. Just this slide here has a lot of information, but the key takeaway here is if you look at like the 66% and the 100 percentile, that's hitting all of the CP events. And if we were only to hit at 66% of those, You can see what effect it has on the megawatt hour, or if we hit on 100% of them, you can see what effect that has. Historically, I think we've hit 100% the majority of the time, and I would expect that to continue. But the slide just goes to show the difference in megawatt hours and the importance of the generating efforts. We'll talk about the O&M budget first for the electric department. We'll talk about revenues. In 2023, we budgeted $19.8 million for sales or charges for service. We also want to look at the renewable energy credits. We budgeted for $50,000 in revenue, and then the interest income at $324,000. For total for 2023, we budgeted $20.6 million in revenue. When we look at our projected year end, charges for service be about $18.1 million, which is a little bit less than what we budgeted for. We have seen a decrease in sales across all of our classes. But also we want to look at the sale of RECs. Again, we budgeted $50,000, but we were able to sell those for about $212,000, so we did really well there. And then also on the interest income, projected year end is $757,000 compared to the budgeted $324,000. So we're projecting to end the year with total revenues at $20.2 million, just slightly below what we had budgeted for. For 2024, we're proposing $19.9 million for charges for services, and then overall total electric revenues of $21 million. Electric expenses, again, this is the O&M fund. 2023, we budgeted $11.2 million for the purchased power, and overall O&M expenses were budgeted at $19.7 million. When we look at our year-end projections, our purchased power expenses are $9.9 million, again, lower than what we budgeted for. But if you think back to all the different credits and billing adjustments that we received throughout the year, that helped us with the cost of our purchasing our power. We project the end of the year at $16.3 million in total electric O&M expenses. For 2024, we're budgeting $10.5 million for purchased power. The other one to look at there is the power plant operations. There is about a $400,000 increase from 2023, largely in part due to the cost of running the gas generators. Total electric O&M expenses for 2024, $19.2 million, or about $500,000 less than the 2023 budget. Projected operating results. So going into 2023, we budgeted for revenues at $20.6 million, our expenses at $19.7 million, or a net income of $951,000. We did have debt service of $22,000 to pay, and that was for the interest of the AMI project. And then we did budget for an additional $200,000 capital transfer, which we will look to complete before the end of the year. That gave us a net change in our fund balance of about $729,000. When we look at our 2023 projected year end, our revenues are projected to end the year at $20.2 million, and again, our expenses at $16.3 million, or a net income of $3.8 million. Again, we talked about the debt service. The $6,000 you see there, that was for the mutual aid reimbursement. That was put back into that line. And then also, you see the proposed year-end transfer to capital of $2.2 million. So that is the $200,000 that's additional in the 23 budget. Then plus we're proposing a $2 million transfer for next year. So a total of $2.2 million, which gives us a net change in our fund balance of $1.6 million. Proposed revenues for 2024 are $21 million, and expenses are $19.2, for a net income of $1.7 million. You do see our debt service there increases to about $114,000. That's because it's the first year for the full principal and interest payment for the AMI project. And then we're also budgeting for an additional capital transfer of $300,000. That's kind of what we've been doing the last several years to give the departments a jump start on the year. And then the net change in the fund balance of $1.3 million. We'll let the department heads talk a little bit about their capital projects.
From a power plant standpoint, obviously our big one is to continue on with the substation. The $350,000 is a creative estimate. We're looking at what kind of timelines that the actual transformer will show up based on generation, and of course what the generation does for us, we'll have to adjust whether we have to unload that transformer and leave it set for the winter or for summer, and then reload it back up with another crane cost and things like that. So with those variables in there, we're just making sure that we have enough in there to be able to flex with what the economy's doing and how the generation schedule falls. The fiber, that's Joe upgrading us. The RTU SCADA is just trying to finish up the other ones like Oglays and things that don't have, that we didn't have budgeted for last year to get it upgrade. And the 1-ton truck is split between that and the Oglays facility. My goal there is to try to get rid of that single axle dump truck that's down there so that the power plant employees won't need a CDL to necessarily run their job. We'll take one of the old 1-tons and leave it down there so that if we had to load something, we can use the dump bed and get that replaced so that it's a little more roadworthy vehicle on there. And of course, the 3/4 ton is replacing Tom's old van. Josh asked us not to take it out of town because the frame was rusting pretty bad. And so we wanted to get that one kind of off the road just from a safety standpoint. The zero turn is in conjunction with the electrical distribution for not only mowing what's around the facility right here, but also the solar field. Just by having a zero turn, we can decrease our time with mowing, and we won't have to transport one from the Oglays up to do the solar field. So we have less chance of damaging the equipment by not transferring it. And then Justin can be able to mow this stuff whatever day he wants. Concrete repairs, that's up a little bit just because of cost. Underneath floodgate number 2 and on the front of the power dam towards the downriver side are some places that need repaired. It looks like the costs are going to be a little bit more. I'm still investigating those with a couple contractors in Defiance, but I may also have to resort to like Cleveland or something to get a concrete restorer that has equipment to actually get out there, because we can't just float out there and work. We have to figure out how to get there safely. And of course the switch and computer perfils are just more of the stuff to get the communications for SCADA and things like that so that Joe can finish up with all the communications between the substations. Questions? Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
On the electric communications capital, communications building, that those dollars are to continue to finish this project that we've been working on this year, because there's a possibility we won't get finished. That's what those dollars are for upgrading the existing head end. The inter-ring fiber is a project we're also working on this year, and this is for basically for fiber termination equipment to terminate that fiber after the first of the year to be able to tie it into the Bryan Street hub and then back to here. And that fiber also is going to provide the connectivity to the new power plant substation and a new connection to water treatment plant. We're going to place the utility communications on that new fiber ring. Fiber optic OTDR test equipment. As you know, we have fiber routes all over the county for the most part, And this equipment is essential to be able to test that fiber should something happen with it, and to be able to repair it and for maintenance to keep it online. And that is divided between electric communications and communications as well. Bryan Street Hub AC unit, that building was constructed in 2012 for RMPD, and the AC unit is basically undersized and it's getting old, and it's having trouble to keep the climate where it should be. So we're looking to put a small unit in there. And then the engineering rover, that's split with a lot of departments. That's for our engineering department. It's a new antenna that we're wanting to purchase that would give them better communication to their GIS equipment out in the field where they tie everything down and put on our maps for us. So
This engineering rover, that's an antenna or a tower?
It's basically an antenna.
it's an antenna. It will go on the tower, and it gives far better reception to their equipment than what they have now. It increases accuracy in that. That's what it does. Any other questions? Thank you.
Electric distribution projects for 2024. A lot of these are typical, and we have year to year on our budget, miscellaneous underground distribution projects. These are overhead to underground projects that we plan for, provide materials, conduit and things like that, wire, cable, for those projects. The overhead also is replacement of overhead power lines, different ones we have, we'd like to maybe look at next year. This is materials for those projects are taken out of this line item. Switches, we buy overhead 12 kV switches, gang switches that we need to replace on the system. 15 grand, we'll buy probably around 2 of them. So that's something that we usually budget for each year, just in case we do need to replace any of those. Fault administrators are overhead and underground devices that help us locate faults on the system. Typically, we would put those up at strategic locations around our system to help linemen figure out where the faults and things are occurring, and helps repair them quicker, having those on our system. Distribution transformers, these are transformers that we replace both for stock and both for proposed projects that we may run into year to year, both on the industrial, commercial side, and also just our regular residential transformers, pole mounts and pad mounts. The distribution pole line is what it is. It's buying poles for replacement in our system. We typically hit around 100 poles a year where we replace just aging poles. So this line usually allows us to buy both the transmission and distribution size poles. Street lighting, last year South Portland Street was improved by the city out, from the dead end out to County Road C. We were working with city engineering. We had the conduits installed in the vaults, and they wanted us to hold off on the poles until a sanitary sewer was installed, just to keep those out of the way of that construction. This year we'd like to purchase those poles and fixtures and have those installed along with putting the cable in as well. So that's what part of that is, and we'd like to maybe get out into some of these older subdivisions like East Village, Union Place, Peters Addition, do some maintenance on those street lights that we have out there in the system, instead of really replacing or installing new on a street, we'd like to do some maintenance on what we have here, because some of them are looking, a little bad. I mean, there's poles out there that are still good, but maybe they might need painted, so we might, just take some time and do some painting of them to make them, freshen them up. Deerfield URD replacement and the Carson Drive, both, these were projects last year that we were gonna buy materials for. We haven't received our boring rig yet, and so I moved them over to the next year. So these are just material only for both those projects. Hopefully we get the rig in here and start, learning it and being able to use it. We're hoping to, they keep pushing it back, time to get it, but there's not really a set date yet. They keep pushing us back every time we ask them about it. So it's just that environment that we're in right now. The transmission line rebuild project, this is kind of a new one that I've put on there. Adam was looking at some of our insulators on our 69 loop around town. Some of them are showing a little bit of wear and deterioration. Of course, when you get to a point where they're starting to track, and there's cracks and stuff, and you have operations and stuff where the water might track across that insulator, that causes issues and operations and things that we can't have. So we budgeted $25,000 to replace the section between Bechtel Switchyard and Baker Street. There's roughly about 150 of those insulators in there. And then we'll continue that section after section as the years go. We'll do another section next year and then continue around the loop. So that's kind of our way to put some maintenance on our 69, which is, really very important in our system. Truck 2 replacement, this is 55 foot. Right now it's an LTEC, it's a 2011 LTEC bucket truck. We'd like to replace that this year to be on our 10-year replacement. We did have it set aside maybe for the year to follow, 2025, but again, in today's environment with the way bucket trucks are out there, we believe we need to get something established and on order at least, or at least get our name on a list so we can actually get it, because some of these are, an LTEC bucket, they're 2028 before we can even get the bucket. So we really need to think about that ahead of time and not, kind of wait, because it could put us behind the 8 ball. So we wanted to move that up to this year, kind of fit in, so we put it on there. And truck 10, this is Jay's truck, it's a 2012 Ford truck. We'd like to replace that truck as well next year. Jim mentioned the zero-turn lawnmower that we're going to split with those folks. Justin mows the 5 acres. It takes him about all day to do that. They did bring the zero-turn up from the dam, and he was able to do it in like 3 hours. So it does save time on here. The Perry Street pole yard, he does mow that as well. I think he mows over here at the old Trevis Street yard too, some of that, along with what Jim said he had to mow as well. But this would be a zero turn. It will stay in Bryan. It would be housed over here in Justin's shop for mowing the yards around here and stuff. The electric warehouse expansion, this would be just for the design and engineering. This is, which would be in addition to what we have out back at our warehouse. With all the increased equipment that we're acquiring, the boring rig, things that go along with that, our back truck, all the different equipment, or not equipment, materials that we have stored outside, all of our fiberglass, our arms and everything. We'd really like to get them under roof because they're out in the weather. They're not, I mean, they're made to be out in the weather, but not when they're not in service. So it would be really nice to look at this again. I mean, we looked at it, we kicked it around about 10, 11 years ago to build another out here. It didn't really fit for really what we needed. So we punted on that one, and now we think it's time we need to look at it again. This would just be for the design and engineering of it to see really what it would cost to build a 100 by 120 to match what we have out there, maybe right beside it, or you know, somewhere like that. Maybe link the two with a pathway is what I'm anticipating. Of course, you talk to an engineer and architect, you may have a lot better ideas that might fit better for what we have, but you know, this is just you know, really securing some engineering firm to do some design work and figure out really what it's going to cost. So that, and the final thing is the electric charging station. We'd like to put one of those downtown or uptown somewhere in a strategic place for people that want to come to Bryan with the EV and charge it. So we wanted to put that on the vote too. So, any questions? Yeah.
I'm gonna start with the chassis and the 55-foot boom.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably gonna be a 2-year wait. I mean,
If we're lucky.
yeah, at least.
Yeah.
So we're just gonna put it in the budget and get it ordered, and then just save the money, and then when it comes.
Right, we're appropriating the money
Right.
for the project is what we're doing.
Okay. Electric warehouse expansion, that's just to design it?
Yes. I figure 7% of the total project cost to build it is usually the engineering. So that's how I came up with the 70,000. That's 7% of what I anticipate a building like that to cost.
The next question I have is, the 100,000 for the transformer purchases and replacements, is that gonna be enough money?
It usually is from year to year
Is it?
from what we do.
And then all of this monies here is just material, no labor.
For the Deerfield and,
It's just materials, right. But like the transmission line rebuild, the 25 is just for materials?
yes.
This is all materials?
Yes, materials with us doing the change outs.
Okay.
Anything else?
Al, that charging station, I'm assuming that's a level 2 for that kind of money?
Yes.
Okay.
That's a level 2, that's a slower charger.
Yes, okay.
Oh, yeah. And would there be any grant money available for something like that?
We've explored the grants and we just don't really fit the buckets to be eligible to apply.
And it would be for how many vehicles?
I think that's just 2.
2?
Yeah, that's one charging station, 2 vehicles, 2 80-amp circuits.
Do you have an idea where you would want to put that? Are you thinking along the street where the courthouse is, or like in one of the parking lots around town behind?
Yeah, we have a couple spots that we've looked at, and looking at the best spot that we feel is the easiest to get power to it, and best for ease of getting in and out of, you know, that somebody comes to town. You know, there's a couple areas downtown that we're looking at. We haven't nailed one down yet, saying there's, you know, I don't know if yeah, just a couple of them that we will probably be bringing to you later when we nail it down a little bit. But
When you say downtown, I'm imagining around the courthouse square.
yes, yeah, downtown, could be on the outskirts of the downtown courthouse areas.
Yeah.
Somewhere in a city
imagining
parking lot pops.
the parking lot catty corner to like the fire department, I could imagine seeing one in that area or.
Yeah, there's a number of
others.
different city parking lots around town.
Yeah.
That, that could be possible,
Okay,
And we're looking at them as an engineering standpoint and also for ease of getting in and out of, like I said, and, just a good spot that, if you have a parking lot that's always full all the time, where people need to park to do whatever they do, their business that they have to do, it might be best to put it in a parking lot that may have open spots
Yeah.
normally, for that reason. So we're looking at all angles.
and have you looked at the solar charging station?
No, I have not.
There may be potential, we could get a grant there.
I don't know how good they would be on the charging, on the timing, just because I know these fast chargers are really, need a lot of power to run.
Yeah.
And these level 2s are, like I said, they're two single-phase 80-amp circuits that that they have, and that's, it could be, you could be there for a couple hours, I would think, to get a charge on your vehicle. I don't know a lot about them, to tell you the truth, but I know I was brought in to provide power to the units, and that's kind of what I know about it.
Oh, okay.
I'm not well-versed in EV charging stations by any means.
Neither am I, that's why I ask.
And it is kind of a newer thing, and, so.
I
for
just
us,
read about those and
Right.
didn't know if you had heard about them yet.
No, I have not heard about any such chargers, but when I thought about that, I would think, well, that's probably slow charging, and then if
Could be.
you wanted to charge it at night, it wouldn't really be any good.
Might
So
have a
unless you have
switch.
some type of battery or something.
Yeah.
But then that technology, is coming along as well, the battery technology, storing the energy that you get out of solar. But
And I think they can switch
Mhm.
to transmission line energy versus
Okay.
solar. I don't know if there's a
Gotcha.
automatic time where it switches off or on, or
Yeah.
just questions.
Yeah, and I know Todd from our engineering, he's done a lot of research on this, the grants and things that are available, and that they put in their time, with Derek and Jimmy, to figure out if there are grants available, and it didn't seem like we could get any at this time. But not saying that it's not going to change in the future.
Al, just one comment on location. I've heard some talk about people may use that spot that's for electric vehicle charging for their own parking if they don't see somebody in it. So some of the people I've talked to, the location, if it's closer to where it's more visible from the street, like on the side of the lot or something, rather in the middle of the lot, so people coming by or the police could see if you're parked there and you're not plugged in, you get a ticket. Something's more visible for, heck, even if I was driving down High Street and I saw somebody in a spot that was supposed to be for electric vehicle and they weren't plugged in, I'd probably report it too. So, it's just a thought.
Probably a lot, signage as well,
Yeah,
public
but-
signage and, EV charging vehicles only, or, could be fined.
Right.
So,
Keep in mind, if you do that, we're gonna have to change our traffic code, so give me a heads up down there.
it's probably gonna happen. Anyway, anything else? All right, thank you.
Sal?
Thanks.
Okay, just to finish up the electric capital improvements for the utility office, there is an admin vehicle in there, which is split with the water office and the electric office, and then a split with the engineering rover, which we've already discussed. Total 2024 electric capital improvements are $1.7 million. Just to take a look at the electric capital reserve fund and the projected operating results. We budgeted the year to have a beginning balance in the capital reserve fund of $2.7 million. We budgeted for the additional $200,000 transfer, giving us total available funds of $2.9 million, with total capital improvement expenses of almost $2.7 million. So we budgeted 2023, anticipating a ending fund balance of $256,000. When we look at the actuals or the projected year end, we started the year at $3.6 million. We're proposing the $2.2 million in transfers, which we talked about as the 200 additional, and then the $2 million for next year. For total available funds of $5.8 million, with capital expenses of $2.8. So we're projecting to end 2023 at $3 million in the capital reserve fund. We're also budgeting for an additional $300,000 transfer, giving us total available funds of $3.3 million with projected expenses of $1.7. And then ending 2024 with a capital balance of $1.5 million. Move on to the water. We'll talk about the O&M budget. We can start with the revenues. We budgeted 2023 for $2.5 million in sales. And we also budgeted for $100,000 in interest income. Total 2023 revenues were budgeted at $2.7 million. When we look at our projected year end, customer sales at $2.7 million, so a little bit better than what we had anticipated. And then also, just like the electric department, we see an increase there in the interest income to $171,000. Projecting the end of the year with total revenues of $2.9 million. For 2024, we're budgeting our customer sales at $2.6 million, and then overall revenues at $2.8 million. Expenses in the O&M fund. The bulk of the expenses is in the treatment and distribution. In 23, we budgeted $1.8 million in there, and then for the total overall O&M expenses, we budgeted $2.4 million. Our projections for year end are $1.5 million in the treatment and distribution, so quite a bit below the budget. And then total expenses at year end at $1.9 million. For 24, we're proposing expenses at $1.9 million for the treatment and distribution, and then overall expenses at $2.5 million. Projected operating results for the water O&M fund. In 2023, we budgeted revenues at $2.7 million and the expenses at $2.4, or a net income of $228,000. We did have debt service payments of $94,000 to make, and then the additional $150,000 transfer that you just approved a little while ago. So we budgeted for a overall decrease in the fund balance of about $16,000. When we look at the actuals for the year end, our revenues are projected at $2.9 million, our expenses at $1.9 million, or net income of $979,000. We also are proposing for a year-end transfer for $350,000, which would give us a net change in our fund balance of $384,000. For 2024, we're budgeting our revenues at $2.8 million and our expenses at $2.5, for a net income of $301,000. You do see the debt service there jumps to $175,000. In 2023, we were at $94,000. The next slide will explain that. And then also budgeting for an additional $150,000 transfer during 2024, for an overall change in the fund balance of about $24,000. Debt service. So in 2023, we totaled about $94,000 in debt service. The one project, South Walnut Street, that was about $27,000. We made that last payment in July, so we're done with that debt. The Town Line Road was about $40,000, and the AMI project, the interest was $26,000. When we look at 2024, again, the $40,000 for the Town Line Road, that debt service extends out to 2029. And then you'll see for the AMI project, it's the first year for the full principal and interest payment of $135,000. And so we get to our total debt service of $175,000. I'll turn it over to Jimmy. He's going to talk about the capital projects for the water.
Good evening, everyone.
Jimmy.
For the 2024 water capital improvement plans and projects, when you look over to the far left under water treatment and distribution, the first line that you'll see is our hydrants, meters, and valves at $20,000. That's something that you see annually. One of our bigger projects for 2024 is going to be the South Lynn Street water line joint project at $550,000. This project is going to consist of a little over 2,600 foot of 12-inch water line PVC, 80 new services, and 5 fire hydrants. That's taken the place of the old 4-inch cast line that's in ground now, which is roughly over 100 years old.
Repeat the
So
last
that-
part of that again.
I'm sorry?
2,600 feet of pipe, oh,
12-inch PVC pipe,
okay. And then what were the other two things?
80 water services,
Okay.
and 5 fire hydrants.
Thank you.
And that will stretch from basically West Wilson Street or Center Street to West South Street. Next in line, you have our distribution saddle and service replacement at $20,000, and our well 2 rehab and conversion. So with our well 2, we're looking at cleaning that well, just like we did here at well 5 last year out back. And we're going to do the conversion to the submersible pump, which will be in at $45,000. Next, we have our diesel backup generator for our south well field over on Perry Street, over by the Fountain City Tower. We're looking to install a CAT generator on site as well. Next, we have the rugged count switch for the water treatment plant. This is to upgrade our network and our SCADA capabilities with Joe's team. And next, we also have another water main replacement project, and that will take place at Blakesley Avenue in Navarre. That project right there is going to be roughly 1,200 foot of new 8-inch PVC. It's going to consist of 13 new water services and 2 new fire hydrants. And lastly, we have a distribution vehicle replacement at $75,000. When you tally that up, we're just shy of $900,000 for both the water treatment and distribution capital improvements. Over to the far right, we have the water utility office. Just like was said before, we have the split of the upgrade of the administration vehicle at $12,500 for the water department, and the engineering rover split at just shy of $9,000, which totals just a little over $21,000. When you tally those up for the total 2024 water capital improvements, you're looking at a little over $918,000.
So we'll just take a look at the water capital reserve fund and the projected operating results. In '23, we budgeted to begin the year with a fund balance of just a little over $1 million. There was the additional $150,000 transfer, giving us total funds of $1.1 million with total expenses of $690,000. So we budgeted to end the year with a fund balance of $477,000. We did take a look at our projected year end. We actually began the year at $1.4 million. Again, the additional transfer, and then the proposed $350,000 transfer gave us total available funds of $1.9 million and total capital improvement expenses of about $550,000. So we're estimating to end this year with a fund balance of $1.4 million in the capital fund. Again, we'll start 2024 with $1.4 million. The $150,000 you see there again is the additional one that we've proposed in the budget for '24. And then also the $60,000 for grant proceeds. That's from the Well 7 generator grant that we received and for any net proceeds from the South Lynn Street project. Total available funds are $1.6 million. And as Jimmy mentioned, total capital improvement expenses of $918,000. So we'd estimate to end 2024 with a capital reserve fund balance of $700,000. We'll move on and talk about the communications utility, the O&M and the revenues. We budgeted sales for the communications department at $754,000, and then total revenues in the communications department at $790,000. When we take a look at our projected year end, customer sales at $772,000. So a little bit better than what we had budgeted for. And then also, like the other departments, an increase there in the interest income. So total revenues for projected year end are $862,000. In 2024, we're proposing customer sales of $729,000. And then a total revenues for the communication at $804,000. On the expense side, we budgeted in total for the communications $1.1 million. Our projected year end is $783,000 in expenses. So quite a bit less than what we had budgeted for. In 2024, we're proposing $1 million in total communications O&M expenses, which is a decrease of about $100,000 compared to 2023. Take a look at the projected operating results. In '23, we budgeted $790,000 in revenues, $1.1 million in expenses, or a decrease in the fund balance of about $347,000. That's what was budgeted for. When we look at the year-end projections, the revenues are coming in at $862,000. Again, the expenses at $783,000, or a net income, or an actual increase in the fund balance of about $80,000. So did very well there, budgeted for a $347,000 decrease, but end up with an $80,000 increase. Proposed for 2024 revenues are $804,000 and $1 million in expenses, or a net income or a decrease in the fund balance of $228,000. Again, just because we budget it doesn't mean we'll spend it, and this is something that we've typically seen here. So the capital improvement projects that are out of the communications, Joe's already reviewed these, but the total here is about $25,000. We talked about this test equipment and the AC unit and all those different things. So we can move on to the capital reserve fund and the projected operating results. So we budgeted to begin 2023 with a $97,000 balance. Total capital improvement expenses were budgeted for $36,000, and we looked at ending 2023 with $61,000 in the capital reserve fund. When we look at our projected year end, we began the year with $112,000, total capital expenses of $31,000, and a year ending fund balance of $81,000. For 2024, we would start the year with $81,000, And from the slide before, we're looking at a total capital improvement expenses of $25,000 and ending 2024 with a balance of $56,000. So that is really the last slide that we have. Like I said, you do have a draft copy of the budget. Please feel free to reach out and ask any questions. We're not seeking any action tonight, but we would like to bring a final draft back to you at the December 5th meeting for your consideration. So just want to thank everyone that's involved with the budget, all the department heads, and everyone, work goes into it. But if you have any questions, feel free to ask.
I have one comment and one question. 6 vehicles is what I've counted in this budget to be replaced in total.
I would have to count them vehicles.
I don't think there's that many, because
Some
there's
of
a
those are
split.
I didn't include the splits.
We didn't include the
I did not
split.
include the splits. It's just something that needs to be looked into. And then, the other thing I have is, I guess this would be more of a question. I guess this would be for Joe. I don't see anything in here for, internet equipment that may need to be replaced, or am I misreading that?
No, ma'am. There's, the equipment that we have is end of life, and we can only operate it as long as it operates. And all of our network equipment, we've replaced this year, the big core switch and all those things that we're doing now that serves the entire city and utility. There's no network equipment as far as the internet goes that we would be replacing next year.
So once it fails, it's done.
Yeah.
So there is 6 vehicles in the budget, but one thing to remember is too, for the last year, better, if not 2, we've really been unable to purchase any vehicles. So that might be why you see a little bit higher number than normal.
Plus you have the lead time,
The
so
lead times.
you gotta jump in at some point.
The other in the water budget has
Yeah.
probably been in there for 3 years. We have been unable to replace it.
That Augley's vehicle should have been retired years ago too.
Some of those vehicles, like the boom truck, I mean, we gotta get on that because you know.
I totally understand that one, I really do.
Yeah,
But
he
it's
said
just
like 4 years lead time on that
Yeah.
when he was talking about it.
But some of these other ones may not be so hard to come by. I don't know, I just observed 6 vehicles, so I just thought my first thought was kind of excessive.
How many vehicles do we have?
Vehicles and equipment.
Overall, or?
Yeah, overall, how many vehicles are we talking about? Is 6 vehicles a small percentage? That's what I'm saying.
Electric department has about 18.
Okay.
Then you'll have to stay on the rotation.
Can we count the boats too?
Huh?
You gotta count the boats
I
too.
guess I didn't count the dump
Yeah.
truck,
Yeah.
so.
I would say
it's about 12.
75.
But like my 1 ton, and I've had it on capital for 3 years in a row, and I couldn't get nothing.
So it's a significant number. And 6, not saying we're gonna get all 6, because
Right.
they're there, but they might be 3 and 3 down the road, so I don't think it's excessive.
And I will say on the city side, it's always a balance with the used and the new, because you either decide to write the PO and order something you know you're not gonna get for 3 years, because there's really only one company that will provide what you need, or you're searching around local dealerships and gov deals for the used vehicles to replace used vehicles, and so we've had that balance too, where things sometimes are in the budget and we just can't find what we need and we don't write the PO and we just have to add it in the next year. This supply chain's been pretty difficult for all of us to maneuver, and it's a guess every time.
Yeah. And just like, Al, you know, the rotation, it's important that we stay on that, because we've got caught years ago. We didn't, and the next thing you know, boom, you gotta replace 2 or 3 vehicles all at once. It's too expensive for a 1-year deal.
I know, I mean, different vehicles have different lives, but if you assume a 10-year life in a cycle, I mean, you're replacing 75 vehicles, you're replacing 7.5 vehicles a year.
Right.
Only 10-year rotation. I know there's different lives of these vehicles, but rough math.
What's the latest on the boring machine?
Yeah, I was just gonna ask.
Where are we?
Yeah, we were, I believe it was March. Yeah. The last update Adam got from the manufacturer.
Any other questions, or? I'd like to thank everybody for their hard work on the budget. I know how much of a pain that is to do. But I didn't hear any complaining, so thank you for everything you've done, Derek. Any other questions on the budget or
What's your favorite way to wear a suit?
comments?
I'm good.
Okay, with that, thanks again for all your presentation, your patience. Next on the agenda is affect semi-monthly disbursements, pay the bills.
I'll make a motion that we pay the bills.
I'll second.
Annette?
Yes.
Dick?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
And Tom?
Yes.
I got 6 too. Just FYI, I got 6.
You could confirm that.
Okay, next on the agenda, we comments from BPA and staff. Start, Al?
Everything's good.
Oh, thank you. Joe?
Good.
Council, John?
No, thanks.
Jimmy?
I agree with everyone. Have a great Thanksgiving.
Okay. Press? Let's give her to John first. I don't know about you.
Happy Thanksgiving.
You got off of it.
Nothing else.
Okay, thank you, John. Ann?
I just want to note that next Monday, there will be a special council meeting at 4:30 PM. They are going over legislation for potential marijuana conversations on distribution, cultivators, et cetera. So I will be sending that out to the media tomorrow on another proposed ordinance, but that will be at 4:30 on Monday next week.
4:30?
Yes, sir, in council chambers. And happy Thanksgiving. Sorry.
Derek?
Just a couple things. Want to welcome Marissa to the team. Give you a little bit of an update. A couple weeks ago, we did utilize gov deals. We were able to sell our truck and 3 trailers, and we were able to bring in $4,600 more than what the minimum bids were set at. So that was a success. I also want to I guess make a little bit of an announcement. The Bryan Board of Public Affairs is seeking interest for an open board seat effective January 1, 2024. Those interested in applying must be a registered voter within the city of Bryan. Applicants should send a letter of interest and resume via email to director@cityofbryan.com or mail to Director of Utilities at 841 East Edgerton Street, Bryan, Ohio. We would ask that applications be received by November 30th. Other than that, wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you, Derek. Mr. Sprow?
Well, just ditto thanks to the department heads for all the work on the budget and the presentation you made tonight. And welcome Marissa to the city team. Happy Thanksgiving.
Karen?
Couple things. I have the Thanksgiving to everybody. I hope the pizza party goes well. And everybody enjoys it. The Christmas decorations look great uptown, so everybody who put their efforts into it, and pre-service, our men who helped and volunteered, thank you to all of them who've helped out. When you guys, it was interesting to see in the board packet the thank you letters, a couple from the kids and one from Emily. She's my cousin, Emily Nagy, and so I had to give her a call, and they were very impressed and very happy that you guys put on a professional show, showed your interest. This is for the, she's part of the homeschooling group, and they were impressed with all the equipment that we had that was there to show the kids. So it was good to get that feedback from them. So I think that's about it, though. Yep.
Annette?
Well, first of all, happy Thanksgiving to everybody. Here we are at the end of the year almost. Congratulations to Marissa. Great job on the utility budgets. I obviously know what it takes to build one of those. It is a lot of work, so thanks for everyone for their hard work. We appreciate the detail that you do give us. And then, yeah, like Karen mentioned, the extra stuff that we had in our board packet with all the community service engagement and activities that you did, like the Bryan Area Christian Cooperative, you hosted that. The Bryan High School classroom visits and the interviews. And then leadership, Williams County group tour, and then the sophomores career day. I mean, this is a good night for kids that may not know the opportunities that are available, even locally, what careers they can have locally. So I think this is very great. This is a really good thing. So thanks for participating in those. I believe that is all I have.
Thank you. I'd like to welcome Marissa to the Clerk-Treasurer staff. And thanks again, department heads, Jimmy, Derek, for all your hard work on the budget. I know how much that takes. That's tough, but it sounds like you come pretty close. How's that? Again, happy Thanksgiving to everyone. And again, to echo what Derek said, we will have opening on the board, as Mr. Sprow did not run for this year. So we encourage anyone to send in a resume, and if you have any interest, and love to have a bunch of them. With that,
Could I add one last thing? I should
Yes, sir.
have thought of it, and Annette reminded me of it. I'm a participant in Leadership Williams County. And we toured the water plant, the power plant, the sewer facility, this building, City Hall, and I gotta say, myself, and I think the whole group, totally impressed with the knowledge, the great tours. I mean, our people know what they're talking about and do a really good job of showing off what we do. So it was great.
yeah, good. Good deal. That's always fun to do. I didn't get to be part of it this year because I was busy doing something else. It's always kind of fun. Kids get a pretty good kick out of stuff, you know. So, okay. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll move to adjourn.
Second?
Tom?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Dick?
Yes.
And Annette?
Yes.